Hey everybody, this is being the Internet Viking. I do apologize that I haven't done this section of the How to Create a Campaign video in a while. I have been hung up with a lot of work, just like real work. Well, this is real work. I kind of consider this real work, but I've just been hung up with some things, and I was at Geekway to the West recently, so when people are watching this video at some point in the like thousands of years from now, well, let's be honest, nobody will, but you'll have an idea of around when I was doing this. So I was in St. Louis in Missouri for TMG, and you know, we were demoing games and what have you. But regardless to anything like that, let's just talk about this section of creating your campaign world. Now, a lot of people are like, and I call it railways or sandbox, and this isn't a black and white thing. You can definitely have a little bit of both in any campaign, and you definitely could try. I think you could easily have a railway campaign, but you know, like having a true sandbox campaign is probably really tough to do, and I'll talk about that here in just a little bit. So railways or sandbox is just exactly that. A railway is you are going to you place your characters on the train, and the train follows the trail. It follows the rails, and it just goes where the DM wants you to go. Now, I did a video a while back about how like DMs can offer the illusion of choice and can hide the railways that the players are on, and you can go ahead and dig that out of my archives if you really want to watch that. But you know, the succinct version of that is that you know, like the magician's trick of illusion of choice is like the classic trick where you have the deck of cards, and you tell the players to pick a card, and they put the card back in, and you know exactly what card you gave them because you made them draw the 9 of diamonds or whatever, and you place it back in the deck, and you know exactly in the deck where it is, and you say go ahead and cut the deck, and they cut the deck, and you know exactly where that card is, and then you tell them go ahead and pick one of those 2 decks. And then if they pick the deck that has the 9 of diamonds in, you tell them, okay, we're going to keep this one and we're going to throw this one away. And if they pick the other one, you say, okay, we're going to throw that one away and we're going to keep this one, because you know where the 9 of diamonds is. And then you keep doing that until you get down to 2 cards, and then you finally, they pick the last one, they're like, and you pick this card? That's the 9 of diamonds. Oh my gosh, I let you pick everything, but you somehow still pick the same exact card. Isn't that amazing? Anyway, so that is a way that you can hide a railway as a sandbox game. You know, I mean, if they say, okay, we're going to go ahead into the forest. Okay, well, you know, I was going to have you run into this bandit king anyway. The bandit king was going to be in the mountains, but because he didn't go to the mountains, we're going to go ahead and put him in the forest. And now that's where he is. And you're going to go ahead and do that. Oh, well, we decided we don't go to the forest, we want to go to the mountains. Oh, well, the bandit king decided he wasn't making enough money in the forest, and now he has to hide out in the mountains and rob rich dwarven merchants. And so you're going to run into that bandit king anyway. There's so many different ways that you can hide that and move it around. But regardless, what I'm talking more about is if you're going to do a railway, you're going to script out your entire campaign. You know that the players are going to go from point A to point B, then P to C, C to D, and there's nothing wrong with a good railway. One, if you can hide the fact that it isn't a railway, you can give the players the feeling like they're actually doing something and actually making choices that matter, which is something that I firmly believe that you need to have in order for your players to engage in your campaign. Now, I know people that just don't do that, but people still have fun because they can be a very combat-oriented or very puzzle-oriented campaign. And when the players just, solve those combats, which, combats are kind of puzzles anyway, like how do I manage to defeat these 12 hobgoblins so I can get from point A to point B? I mean, that is a puzzle in itself, right? But you can still have fun because there's lots of different things going on. I'm not a big believer in railways, but I've definitely played in several, and I've had fun playing them. I've also played in some railways that are garbage as well, and I've played in sandboxes that are garbage as well. So let's not pigeonhole anything right here. So this is what's going to happen. You're going to decide one of the two, and most likely you're going to end up somewhere in the middle. And I think that's the perfect place to be. But what you should have, in my opinion, and this is what I do, is I have a rough plot line. My last big campaign that I did was that the big, giant, rough plot line was there were all these movers and shakers in this brand new world that the players were part of, where they were investigating, searching, trying to find out what was going on. And all of these movers or shakers ultimately had different goals, but the one goal that was the most important was that this girl was the descendant of the descendant of the descendant of a royal family that had been murdered. Very Games of Thrones-esque in a way. And I'm going to completely say I was totally inspired by that. And also, like the idea, and I can't think of the name right now, the Russian royal family, and there was always the theory that the one girl survived, and of course I can't think of her name right now. Somebody will post up in the comments, I'm sure. The first person who sees this, and they'll say it, and you know what? If you Google it and find it, it doesn't count. You have to pull it up from your own memory. But I mean, so like that kind of thing. Like they didn't know this girl was alive. They didn't know that she had survived. And even though it's like hundreds of years later, she's been like taking magical potions and things like that to keep her youth. And so then she's worked behind the scenes in the attempt to eventually overthrow the king that exists now. And ultimately the party had to decide who they were going to side with, as far as like who really was, the bad guy. And it was a good campaign. I had a lot of fun with it. It was a good story. And that was ultimately the kind of the railway that the players are going to be on. That plot was going to happen regardless. And I think most campaigns end up with a plot like that. They end up with like, hey, this is what's going to happen. You are, like the aforementioned videos I've done this for, the players are eventually going to have to kill that red dragon. The red dragon in the valley. That's what the players are going to have to do. Now, to get there, it can be a complete and total sandbox. The railway is there, but like the players are going to build that railroad one track at a time to eventually get to that point. And I think that's a completely fair and a completely good and acceptable railway, that the players can enjoy. The problem with a true sandbox is that either A, the DM has to spend so much time, like basically creating an entire world and putting lords and ladies and monsters and dragons and golems and wizards and priests and religions and whatever in every single spot. So no matter where the players go, there's going to be something there for them to mess with. Think of the very beginning of the first time if you've played it, like if you played the Elder Scrolls games. It's like you would just wander off into the wilderness. Like you would eventually find like caves or bandit hideouts and things like that. Those weren't procedurally generated though. Those were like put there by the people that created the game. And so you would go there and you would find it and you would be like, oh, like this is kind of cool. It's like I can just go in any direction I want and I will like discover what I want, and what have you. But it wasn't, and that was really a sandbox in a lot of ways. So you were able to just kind of do your own thing. Now, as a person, and you don't have a giant development team, you can't sit there and make a giant map and put everything in there. So as a player, you really don't have the ability to create a true sandbox. I mean, even the games, even the adventure novels and books that are out there, that it's like, oh, this is a sandbox adventure. They really aren't sandboxes. Because a lot of it will rely on the DM for like wandering monsters and things like that, and like plugging in different encounters and whatever where they're needed when you play. So making a true sandbox, I think, yeah, it's possible, but I don't think I don't know of anybody that's done it, and I don't think I ever will. So now quasi sandboxes are very easy to create, depending upon the player. Now, this is going to sound a little braggadocious, if you will, but I kind of pride myself on my ability to create things on a fly as a DM. One day I'll do a video, and I've been wanting to do this video for a while, like the things I do as a DM, and this is like literally 40 years of running games. I mean, I remember when I was in grade school, I was trying to run D&D campaigns for my older brother, and his friends. So as a DM, like I've been doing this for a long, long time. And what I've cultivated over this period of time, if you do something enough, you eventually, theoretically get good at it, right? Or you explore your the maximum, you maximize your ability to be able to do that particular thing. So I can create an entire session on the fly. I can just say, all right, you wake up at the 9 Circles Inn. It is the morning, and what are you doing? And literally, I can react to what the players say to create a session for that particular day. Now, I've done this for when I have no overarching ideas as far as what's going to happen. I've done it with, I know exactly, at 3 o'clock, there's going to be an attack on the city that's going to propel some action forward. But, I can do things like that. I could say, if we're talking about that red dragon in the valley, I could say at 4 p.m., the red dragon's going to fly overhead. Not going to attack, not going to do anything, just to kind of let, the people in the canyon know, hey, I'm still here, you still owe me my tribute, I'm not going away. And it's gonna provide a little bit of a goose to the players. I mean, maybe that's the only real event that I've created. But when the players decide, you know what, I'm gonna go down to the market, and I am going to look and see if I can get a masterwork sword or something like that. Fine. On the fly, if I don't have one already, I can create a merchant that they're going to deal with that day. And it's going to be a fun little 30-minute or longer encounter. Maybe I'll just say, the merchant says, yeah, I've got a masterwork bastard sword. You think it was amazing. Take a look at it. And I'll describe the sword. It's razor sharp. It's, it's got a blue tinge to the steel. It looks pretty cool. It's even got what you're guessing is a fake ruby in the pommel, but it looks really it looks real. And I'm going to make that sword just seem really cool to the player. And I'm literally making this up as I go along right now. Now I've made that sword really cool. Now they say, I really want this sword. And then, Masterwork, if I remember correctly, back in the old days, Masterwork swords cost 400 gold or something like that. I'm going to say, well, this sword's got a heritage to it. It was wielded by, a family of knights, the last of their name, sold it to me. It's people are going to recognize this sword, and they're going to know that you're an important person. So, I mean, I've got to charge 1,000 gold for it, knowing full well the players don't have 1,000 gold. Now, I put the player, maybe I purposely told that to a person in the party that maybe has questionable morals. Maybe they're going to go and try to steal that sword. Maybe they can say, well, is there some way that I can put a down payment on this or something like that? Now I can come back with that merchant and say, well, here's the deal. I'd be willing to sell you this sword for 150 gold. And now their ears perk up because that's cheap. They can get that sword, right? But I need you to do something for me. And now all of a sudden I've got a story. Now what? Maybe this merchant is, maybe they're noble. Maybe they're a person that's of their word, and there's somebody they can trust. They can say, now you can go classic protection. I need somebody to go with on this wagon train to deliver these steel ingots, to my cousin who's in the next village over, because he needs them for a special thing, and I know that and they need to get there soon, so they're going to have to actually go through the shortcut that they know has, orcs and hobgoblins or whatever along that trail. So now, now they've got a story. Now they've got something they're going to do, or it could go darker. It's late tonight along the river. I've got somebody that's delivering me some items that might not be completely, what the city guard likes to see within the city limits. So I need somebody to work as lookouts and, make sure I don't get double-crossed when I go pick up this stuff. So now I've presented a different thing, a city adventure where, I'm questioning the morals of the players, and, maybe now they turn around and they report that to the city guards. Things like that. Now, I just came up with that. Now, I didn't just come up with that. I just came up with that because of all the different adventures, all the different TV shows I watched, all the different movies I watched. But now, that's a solid 2-3 hours of adventuring right there. And I have a session that I can play, and we can have a lot of fun with that. And I didn't have that before sitting down to play. Now, what's the purpose behind that? The purpose behind that is to get this guy a sword. Make that fighter a better fighter. Or whatever class they happen to be. Make them a better character. power them up a little bit, give them something cool. And now I got to think about the other players in the party. You know, well, what's the mage going to get out of this? Well, some gold maybe, or maybe that particular merchant can get some rare magical components that could add, like, oh, you know, I can get a hold of some magical components that are going to add, like, when you use these, it'll add +1 damage to your magic missiles or something like that. You know, they expend or something like that. Now I've got them excited. You know, it's like, obviously if this merchant isn't on the up and up, now the thief has, like, maybe a connection to the Thieves Guild that they didn't have before. And you can see, you can just kind of build on these things. But remember, you got to give buy-in to all the players. You got to give them something to want to do it. So there, I mean, I kind of went off on that a long ways, you know, as far as the creativity goes on it. But what you can do is when you do a sandbox, it's a sandbox for a session. It's a sandbox for a purpose. But you have to remember that, like, in between these big sandboxes, you have to put some pavement. And the pavement is what's going to drive your real story forward. And it's going to, you know, move them down the real railway. But when you have these big sandboxes and some pavement, another big sandbox and some pavement over here, people don't remember the pavement because the sandboxes just kind of flow into that pavement, then they leave and go into the next sandbox. And the players think that they're actually bought into the world and they're doing, you know, they're doing things that actually change and create and alter the world that they're playing in. And maybe, just maybe, they really are. And a good DM will allow the players to, like, have a very good portion of telling the story. In the campaign that I'm playing right now, there have been a few major NPCs that have double-crossed my bard. And my bard started off being a very good person, but, you know, he slowly but surely, you know, not turned evil, but definitely has turned into somebody who's kind of vengeful. And he's now become, you know, he's fairly powerful now, and he's kind of become, if you cross me, life is cheap. And a lot of people are trying to kill him. So if you prove to him that you know, you're going to cross him, and he's going to, you know, put that person in the ground. And so and I didn't go into it thinking I would play that way, but it's one of those things where the story, after now playing in this campaign for over a year, it's just the story has just kind of taken us to that spot, and we've developed the campaign and the player, and that's a situation where you know, these NPCs that, you know, no longer live, maybe Jason, my DM, isn't really all that excited about the fact that they're no longer around, but by allowing me to have an equal stake into the storytelling, an equal hand into creating the sandbox that he's having us play in, we're all buying into it more. And so that's why I play that quasi sandbox style. And I think most DMs out there who run their own stuff, you're going to be doing quasi sandboxes. You know, I just, you know, there's one person within Andy, our person in our campaign, who is very structured. He plots out and structures his campaigns a great deal, and he makes fantastic campaigns. But man, I don't I could never do the work that he does, that he puts into it. So there you go. So that is railways and sandboxes, and, you know, it's just, you're going to have to make up your mind yourself when you create your campaign as to which one you want to roll. So there you go. If you have any comments or questions, if you want to talk about any of the campaigns that you've run and whether or not where on the spectrum they ended up falling, I'd love to hear about that. I love hearing more RPG stories. I think those are fantastic. As always, thank you so much for listening to me prattle on about this stuff. I really appreciate it. And remember, just be the best version of you possibly can be. Challenge yourself to throw love into the universe so you get that love right back in your face. Anyway, yeah. Until next time, remember, whoever you are, you're awesome. And I'm the Undead Viking. I'll talk to you later.